Hello, my name is Nicholas Pappas. I'm here to do my presentation today. Me and Brad Kicklighter worked on it together, and we really wanted to start off saying how much we enjoyed the class and how much it's really going to be able to help us moving on. And Brad can't join me because he's been having some internet troubles, but we're going to try and do this the right way, considering with all the COVID-19 stuff. So I'll just go ahead and jump into it. So the first thing that we talked about in Dr. Katz's class was to learn how to introduce yourself and, the importance of a handshake and building a relationship with a client or really just with people in general or some of your workers. Some of the biggest takeaways was one, making a strong impression. A strong impression is literally the most important thing you can do in the first part of business. People will decide upon looking at you just what they're going to think about you, and it takes a lot to be able to go back and revise and really build a better relationship than that. And when you go into a room and you want to meet somebody, and if it's of importance, you wait for them to come at you with the handshake. Now, the handshake is important. You have to make sure that you keep a firm grip and that you don't be too strong and you're not too forward. You don't want to be over eager. And the biggest thing to me that we learned was don't go in the room blind. You always want to have done your proper homework on what you're going to need to be doing and the people that you're going to be talking to. And I think that's a powerful thing, and we reiterate this throughout the presentation and throughout the class. Another big portion that we talked about was professional image. And this isn't always talking about your LinkedIn profile, the picture they see. I'm talking about your daily routine and how you go about yourself. Now, it's appropriate to be dressed sharply. On the other hand, you don't want to be overdressed. You never want to make somebody else in the room feel like they did the wrong thing. And you need to set a good image for yourself. You need to make sure that you look clean and that you're well shaven and you're polite. You always want to keep your posture like I'm doing right now. And you don't want to overuse cologne or a fragrance because that is instantly distracting, especially if you're in a job interview. I read an interview the other day about a man who was interviewing a woman, and she was explicitly qualified and she was really well mannered and she did everything right, but she overused perfume and he couldn't stop thinking about it the whole time. And that's the type of thing that sticks with people. You want to be able to separate yourself, but you also don't want to be seen in a negative light. Another part of professional image that we learned was the DISC test. And me personally, I think this was one of the most revealing things we did in the class. I mean, the DISC test in itself has proven true in terms of how to communicate with certain types of people and then categorizing them. For example, Dr. Katz liked to talk about how he was a D and he had to make sure that his wife was an I. And he made her take the DISC test the second time before their second date. And he was an I, and then he was ready to carry on with the thing, or with his relationship. So how do you use the DISC test? The best way to use the DISC test is to understand if somebody is a dominant or wherever they may be on the DISC and be able to navigate their personality using that. And that is a very strong tool and I'm glad that we discussed such in the class. So another part of professional image is etiquette and manners. You always want to be professional, and especially in a dining situation, you want everything to be right and for there to be nothing amiss. And not just talking about, the proper placement of utensils, but I mean, it goes a lot farther than that. You want to make sure, especially in terms of dining, that you have appropriately gauged what's supposed to be going on. If you invited somebody, you pick up the ticket, you have knowledge of the menu, and you make sure that their time at the table is as enjoyable as yours. And the biggest thing to look after is to avoid overconsumption of alcohol. Now, that seems like a menial task, but it comes up a lot, and it's something that you have to be prepared for. Now, we moved on into the interview and preparation for the actual interview, and before after. And I think the biggest thing that you can do, in my experience when I've been in an interview, is to do your research. If you know a lot about what you're going into, then you're able to give appropriate questions. It's just the fact of the matter. And then you also need to be sharp, very well dressed, clean shaven, professional. And another big takeaway is, for the end of the interview, make sure you get their contact information, and it goes a long way when you send a thank you note. It keeps your name in their minds, and you can stick out from the other candidates, which is a big strength. But another part of the interview process is the resume and the personal statement and what you want them to see when they first get to look at you. Make sure the resume fits the image you want. I personally went in for a job interview with Sunoco for one of their finance internships, and I'm a professional sales major. So for me personally, I had to pull some tricks and pull the ace out of my sleeve and kind of gauge my resume to make it look like I was more willing to go into the finance field, and nothing wasn't set in stone. When in reality, I was just happy to be interviewing. So when I ended up going pretty far. But with a resume, the biggest thing is to keep it neat and organized and to the point. You don't want them to have to do a page turner when they have 100 resumes coming in. A big part of this class that I'm really glad that got pointed out was Career 7, the 7 deadly sins. The biggest thing to do is to avoid these sins, and your career is safe. The biggest thing to take away is always show initiative, and if you are connecting with others, then you are going to do well. It's just the premise of it. And another part is building your network. You need proper networking is probably the biggest facet of business. Networking is one of the best ways to improve your business, and the biggest thing too is to never burn bridges. You don't want to have to reach out to somebody that you could have already been able to do business with if you hadn't cut them off. And aside from that, you need to mentor others and be ready to talk at all times. So demonstrating how you are fiscally responsible with Dave Ramsey was another thing that stuck with me. And I think that this proves true. The biggest thing that you can do is prepare. And Dave pushes the $1,000 emergency fund. And I can tell you personally that right now, for me, example, I've been putting all my, I play musician. I'm a musician in Charleston, and I've been putting all my money away because I was going to be living in Charleston this summer. And after, COVID-19, my 2 internships got rescinded due to, company cutbacks. And right now I'm very thankful that I listened to Dave Ramsey and I have this money stowed away, so I'm not, on the edge. But another facet that he said was save 3 to 6 months of living expense. You just really never know what's going to happen. And the coronavirus and COVID-19 is got to be the biggest example of that. There is nobody out there right now that is good as they are now. They aren't as good now as they were in the past before all this happened. So the people who were properly prepared are looking to move forward from this. And always have a plan for yourself. With the proper planning, crisis isn't a crisis. And I think Dave Ramsey pushes that very hard. And the book we read, Make Your Bed, stuck out in a lot of ways, especially to me. I don't consider myself a very organized person, but after reading this book, I can tell you that the way you carry yourself does change. You start your day with a purpose. You try and be a good team member to everyone. And working as a team is far more powerful than working alone. And based with the title, if you start your day and you make your bed, it's just a premise of being able to pay attention to detail, and that was a part of the book that everyone had picked up on. And in closing, I really just want to be able to reach out and thank Dr. Katz for what he's provided to the Citadel and his good name. I want to thank Dr. Siegler for stepping in and doing so well. And really just to speak on, Brad wanted me to relay to Professor Katz as well that we have enjoyed our time in his class, and we hope he has a happy retirement.